It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and young guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in on what is a really nice Friday afternoon in Nashville. Given, what would we call this, close to mid-February, pretty fortunate on the weather front. No snow yet this year. We had the huge cold snap right before Christmas, but otherwise really not bad at all. So happy about that. Billy, I have a question.
Fire away, George.
Okay. I have reached a point where I'm a little bit of Super Bowl overkill.
You know, I would have to agree, George. We've had these 2 weeks before a Super Bowl before, but this one feels a little bit different. It's almost like the market's been saturated with Super Bowl coverage for the past 4 or 5 years, but it's almost like there's nothing new anymore. You know, we've been talking about the same matchups for the past 2 weeks. We've been talking about the same storylines, and it's like, all right, let's get to the game.
I sort of made the decision in scheduling the show that we were not going to go into Super Bowl overkill. We'll spend part of the 3 o'clock hour in it. Here's the other thing. This is a week later because of the 17th game of the regular season. This is a week later than the Super Bowl has ever been before.
Yeah, I think that plays a part of it with a lot of the older people as well that are used to the Super Bowl being on this date.
I think it's too late.
Yeah, it's February. It's going to be February 12th.
Right.
I mean, let's have it either early February, maybe not late January, but let's have it earlier. I mean, college basketball hasn't been this deep into the schedule, I don't think, for any Super Bowl. It's kind of a weird feeling. So I don't know, George. I don't know how to put a finger on why this Super Bowl doesn't have as much buzz as it feels like it should, but it doesn't.
I think it will when the game starts.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a terrific matchup.
Yeah.
It looks like one that's going to be decided by a touchdown or less, maybe a field goal or less, could be a buzzer beater. I mean, I'm hard-pressed to believe that either one of them just blows the other one to shreds.
No, and George, we talked about it yesterday on the show and saying that this is probably going to be competitive. You got a good idea that this game will most likely be competitive. It's not going to be a blowout, probably be a lot of points scored. But both these teams have experience in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs with Mahomes and Kelsey and Reed, and I mean, they're sort of that mini Patriot style. They've been in these AFC title games. They've been in the Super Bowl. For the Eagles, same sort of thing. They've got a pocket of players that have been in this game. And so I'm excited to see the coaching aspect of it. Yeah, I know we talked about it yesterday with Watson. He was joking about how we don't know what the heck we're going to see from Reed, and some of those play calls could be running around in circles again. But, that's what I'm excited about, sort of the coaching aspect of this matchup.
Well, there's no doubt Andy Reid, listen, he has played down the whole, I used to be the coach at Philly, but I'll bet you come kickoff, it doesn't get downplayed.
No. And for him personally, George, I mean, we talk about all the time the fact that coaches, they don't get personal with you, then especially in public, but
in private they do.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've heard it from Watson all the time, the sort of the personal relationships that were built, by Reed in Philly. He may still have some of those. And I guarantee you he's got sort of an extra gear that he'll reach at some point in this Super Bowl.
He has never really expressed any bitterness. He had a really good career in Philly, and it nosedived at the end, and that's what got him fired, and KC picked him up like that.
Mm-hmm. And credit to them. I mean, KC is looking like
By the way, does this got a little Chiefs look to it? I didn't think about that earlier.
It sure does. It sure does.
So, you ready with the update?
Let's do it, George.
Let's go.
Let's get to that update. We'll start with last night, the NFL honors. Here's a little recap of all the major award winners. MVP, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. Offensive Player of the Year, Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Defensive Player of the Year, Niners defensive end Nick Bosa. Coach of the Year, Brian Daboll, which I think is very well deserved. The Jets got both the offensive and defensive rookies of the year, wide receiver Garrett Wilson and cornerback Sauce Gardner. And comeback player of the year, George, Geno Smith.
Agree with that.
Yeah. I was wondering when I saw that name, Geno Smith, what the heck did he win? And I saw comeback player of the year. I was like, okay, that fits him perfectly. So, and also, George, I don't know if you saw Damar Hamlin get up on the stage and give that speech.
I just did. Tell me, I just saw it. We've got a monitor in here. What did he say?
Well, he said a lot, George. He said something really powerful about, finding his purpose. He said God taught him, about his purpose in life through this. There's a lot of thanking people, but I thought that was pretty powerful. I mean, it was kind of crazy even seeing him up there, able to walk and talk clearly and speak clearly. And, it's almost like we forgot about it a little bit, for a period of time, but
sure,
seeing him back up there was huge.
Oh, that is terrific.
Yeah. So Damar Hamlin was up there as well. He was honestly the highlight of the night for a lot of people. George, other NFL news though, Justin Fields, we've talked about this a lot with, the Bears having the number 1 pick in the draft. That gives them a lot of options. They could, go O-line, defense, quarterback. What do they do? Well, if they do draft a quarterback, Justin Fields said, I think they would let me know before, but what would be going through my mind is, who am I playing for next? He said, with all that going on, I just try to control the controllables and focus on me. But George, I thought that was interesting. If they draft a quarterback, Fields said, I'm out.
My gut feeling is that they trade down. They could get a ton.
I haven't thought about that.
From a desperate team that really needs a quarterback.
Yeah.
Could the Titans be one of those? Maybe. Don't think so, but who is to rule it out at this point?
Yeah, and George, I was watching I don't know if you've seen the NFL films on the Philly special and sort of everything that went into that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a 30-minute video, and they went all the way back to when the Eagles, they had an awful season. They were trying to rebuild. They had brought in Doug Peterson, and they had either the 11th or 12th draft spot. They traded up to take Carson Wentz. And obviously Wentz.
Wow.
So that reminded me of what you said about the Titans. Do they trade up? Are the Bears interested in, trading back, I guess is, whatever that's called.
The Bears, first of all, have to consider everything.
Right.
They're not good enough to just say, well, boom, we know. They're going to get hit with some proposals that are going to force them to get in a room and say, what do we do?
Right.
What's the right move?
Yeah, they've got a decision on their hands, George.
Because they've got an up-and-coming quarterback already.
Mm-hmm. And
yet through what happened in the final couple of weeks of the regular season, they have the first pick in the draft.
That'll be interesting. George, Charles Barkley is in the news in the NBA. He's already a member of the Hall of Fame, Basketball Hall of Fame, and, of course, an analyst at TNT. But according to Puck's Dylan Byers, CNN chairman and CEO Chris Like is in negotiations with Barkley to have the Hoops great on a news-oriented primetime show. The show would have the Inside the NBA analysts interview newsmakers, journalists, and other guests about various topics throughout the day.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's Charles Barkley. He can do anything. I mean, I think he would hit it out of the park. I don't know. He would get sports fans watching. If it's a news-oriented show, I'm sure he'd be talking sports. That's what was interesting to me. It's this is a news-oriented show. It's not a sports news-oriented show. So I'm confused about that aspect of it, but I think he would crush it.
Yeah, I do too. My one worry would be when you try to mix the two, in different roles, does it at all diminish one of them? I don't
Yes.
know.
That's what's weird. I thought this would be, first off, I was surprised to see CNN is the network that wants him.
I had turned him down about a week ago.
He would have been a great ad, George. Okay, last piece here, George. Greg Sankey has said that he's come out and said that he's excited about these rekindling rivalries in the SEC and with the Big 12 expansion, SEC expansion, but teams like Texas and A&M, Oklahoma and Arkansas, going back to the Big 8 days, and as they moved in the Big 12. And I think, George, that's what fans should be excited about as well. I mean, there are some matchups that you look at and you go, man, we get to see these every year or every other year. So he said, obviously, you think about Texas A&M and Texas, but the Arkansas-Texas history, Oklahoma and Missouri, they will now have a quarter of the former Big 8 members in the SEC.
Arkansas, Texas. This is when Nixon was in office. Ended up playing kind of a winner-take-all national title at the very end of the regular season. I want to say it was 69. I might be wrong about the year, but I've seen film footage of it. And Nixon attended the game.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
You stick with me, you'll learn something. Not much, but you'll learn.
A little bit.
Yeah.
That's it for the update, George.
Is it really?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, you know what? I see Mark Griffin looking very professorial with those glasses. See, mine don't make me look anything. His make him look smart.
They sure do.
Yeah. He's throwing up his hands. So Mark's got some theories on Tennessee's recent nosedive that includes the loss to Vandy Wednesday night at Memorial Gym. We will talk to Mark next about that and other important basketball issues. Stay tuned.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
Rocky Top has had 2 or 3 really tough weeks. And obviously the latest of those was the loss to Vandy Wednesday night at Memorial Gym. Mark Griffin and I both were in attendance for that game. Mark, thank you as always for your weekly Friday visit.
Oh, it's my pleasure, George. Beautiful day here in Nashville.
It is nice, isn't it?
Mhm.
So do you think, going back a month ago, Tennessee was either a pretty solid 1 or a very solid 2? As I watch them right now, whatever number they are, they feel more like they're playing at the level of a 4 seed or a 5 seed. A lot of struggles on the offensive end. Do you think this is the new norm for this team, or are they going to find their way out of this?
I think it's going to be a struggle for here on out, the rest of the schedule, George. Tennessee has their tougher opponents ahead of them now. And I'm not saying there's any cupcakes at all with the SEC, but the easiest game they have is a South Carolina game at home. But you've got the likes of Missouri, home, Arkansas home. These are not in order. Alabama, you go on the road against Kentucky, you go on the road against Texas A&M. I mean, these are your upper echelon SEC teams. And if they don't work out how to knock down jump shots, I'm a little concerned about how they're going to fare at the end of the season and how the committee is going to look at them, because, George, they won't come out and say this, but you know this yourself. Every committee for the last 20 years does look at your last 10 games. And they're, momentum builders or momentum killers. And right now it's a momentum killer for Tennessee if they don't turn it around.
Mark, what do you think is the biggest issue? Is it lack of a real go-to guy?
I think that's an issue. The thing that really stands out to me in the digging that I did, George, is this team shoots the least free throws in the SEC. And that's very perplexing. You have to ask yourself why. When your shot is not going in, you're always taught from even middle school, drive to the basket, try to, draw a foul or get a layup. This Tennessee team has not, to me, adjusted for whatever reason that's been successful when their shot's not going down to get to the free throw line. And that's been evidence here really lately. And it really hurts them because they got a really good free throw shooting team. I mean, Zakai Ziegler's, I believe, leading the SEC in 85%. So you've got to get to the line. You got to make things happen. When you're driving, there's offensive rebounds that are available, and just not maximizing that right now. I hate to call it settling, but they're just not getting opportune shots to fall when they're open right now. Hopefully it's a slump, but if it's a consistent slump, George, this talk of seeding is just going to go south for this program. And then you're going to have some of the old school Tennessee followers are going to go, here we go again. We have a good regular season, go into the tournament, could lose the first game. And that's not what you want to be feeling from a student athlete perspective, but that's what I feel and what I hear. The fans' perspective is leaning that way.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of that. Mark, you've delved a little deeper into 5 losses, 5 big men, and what they have gotten done. Just sort of plow through that, and then we'll talk around it a little.
Sure. What I did, George, I always like to dig a little deeper into the numbers because, all coaches, if you watch, I was watching the other night, and Musselman during the game had a stat sheet on the floor while he's coaching, studying stats. I mean, it's just what you do, and you break them down in whatever way gives you an advantage, or you're looking for something that's giving you a competitive disadvantage that you can adjust. And what I did, because I've noticed a trend here recently, especially starting from, looking at the last game and how great Leon Robbins played. I mean, he looked like a pro, George, and I'm sure y'all have talked about this game ad nauseum, but I was so impressed with his style of play, his focus. I thought, In Tennessee's 5 losses, how did the number 5 or the big man fare against UT? So I looked it up, and then what I found, going back to the Colorado, I call it debacle in Nashville, their center, Tristan Da Silva, had 14 points, second leading scorer on the team. Against Arizona in a loss, Tabellis, 19 points, 9 boards, led their team. Against Kentucky in a loss in Knoxville, Sheedway, 15 points, 13 rebounds, leading the team. Florida, which really stood out, George, with the play of Colin Castleton. Tremendous game by him, 20 points, 9 rebounds. And then lastly, Leon Robbins, 14 points, 9 rebounds. You look at that and go, how can this happen that the 5-man has such an advantage over this Tennessee team? As an opposing coach and program, I am making sure that I'm getting my big man involved in one capacity or another to take at this Tennessee team, because with Tennessee rotating their 3 big men in and out, they're just not getting a consistent play on the defensive end to stop the presence of their opponents. And it's definitely shown within their losses.
Okay, so you've done this. You got to believe Barnes's staff, somebody has done this.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they counter?
Well, what we've seen, with Tobias Waka playing more against Vanderbilt, you kind of go with the hot hand. Plavsic didn't play a lot against Vanderbilt. Don't know all the reasons why, but I think pretty consistent rotation with the 1 through 4 players. With the 5, I think it's a crap shot to see if Adu is strong enough to defend. He has some extreme mismatches strength-wise. Great athlete, but very thin. And he gets pushed around. And Robbins would have dominated him even more. Plavsic, on the other side, big, sturdy, strong guy, gets beat. His feet aren't good. With Toby, just raw. I mean, here's a kid that's supposed to be in high school right now in New York. He reclassified to be a freshman at the UT program. And you can see when he gets the ball, he's thinking. His offense is very limited. Defensively, he's pretty sound. But then you have to weigh as a coaching staff, do I play him when we can't really count on him to score consistently? Now, he had a few, baskets the other night, but is he so consistent on offense, or is he a detriment to make up for his upside on the defensive end? So that's kind of how you measure your roster to try to get a hot hand, especially for UT's inside players, to have a favorable result.
Mark, I want to get your thoughts on Liam Robbins, and I'm going to tell you where I'm coming from. So Will Perdue and I talk a lot, and we talked, I want to say it was Monday, it may have been Sunday, whatever the case. I said to him, I said, Will, when he gets significant playing time, he probably forces about 10 points that ought to be almost automatic inside to not happen because of his presence. He's got really good timing on the defensive end. I look at the offensive end and I see some footwork issues that he should be better than this by now. Thus, I'm saying to Will, you need to coach him at some point. Are you with me on where Robbins is?
No, I would agree. I mean, he's got, if you break down standout players, everyone's going to have some sort of deficiency. And I agree with you. It's definitely on the footwork or feetwork side. But he's such a difference maker overall that you have to play him even more minutes. I agree. I'm still dumbfounded that there's this system to where, if he is still coming off the bench or not, but you've got bench players that should be starters. And usually, George, as you know, and your listeners, when you get into SEC play or conference play, your bench becomes shortened. you don't play the 10 to 11 guys. You're usually in a rotation of 7, 8 to 9. And you just are going to stack minutes. And with him, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think he was playing around 22 to 24 minutes a game. So when you look at his productivity per minute, he's leading the nation probably per minutes getting block shots. I think he's third overall or so. But such a difference maker, good passer. I mean, for him to even step out and knock down several of the threes the other night at Vandy, which, you and I are both there, you're just like, oh my God, this guy can't miss. And you kind of want a big guy like that to be, to give him a shot outside, because you have to weigh it. Like, do you want him shooting a 3-foot shot or a 3-point shot? Well, the odds are better that he's going to miss his 3-point shot, but Robbins was on. And for the Vanderbilt faithful, you got to thank Ed Conroy for Leon Robbins, because George, that's a nephew, and Ed was on staff, here lately until he got the Citadel job, and convinced his little nephew to come to Music City, and it's paying dividends right now.
Little nephew can play. So I asked Lee Fowler and Coach B this question. On Vandy's end, is this a moment in the sun, or is this the beginning of, new confidence? They've beaten a nationally ranked team, and boy, they're about to take off.
Wow. That's a great question. And I think what it boils down to is a couple of factors. It's your leadership from the top, how Stackhouse prepares them for their Saturday game. It's one or two players taking a leadership role and saying, hey, foot in the sand, new beginning. We're going to take it from here, and we're going to move up the ladder, and we're going to make a difference this year. And you hope that comes from your upperclassmen, just because of seniority, which you don't see as much like you did back in the day, but you've got to have on-court presence leadership to help these guys stay focused, because you can get in a funk where, you have such a high coming off a big win with, the Memorial Magic, which was definitely in place, to, oh, that's just a bump in the road. We're still, a 10-place team in the conference or so. So a lot of it's going to be the mental capacity that these guys are able to take on. And let's face it, with the Vanderbilt build up of student athletes, you got some smart guys. So it's just a matter of staying focused, doing a good job, practice day after day, and take advantage of their next opportunity when they play Saturday.
Okay. Want to go to Kentucky with you before we go to the break. The news up in the Commonwealth is, as I talked with Lee and Coach B yesterday, about Oscar Tshiebwe. Arkansas came out after trashing Kentucky at Rupp, and they virtually had a press conference where they almost laughed after the game and said, look, we knew anytime we needed, we could go pick and roll against Oscar Tshiebwe, right, and we get whatever it is we wanted. Now, that's a little bit of an exaggerated paraphrase, but this is a big issue up there. Mark, he's too upperclassman for this to be going on.
No doubt. And what you found, George, is watching tape, watching live, you're able to see these mismatches that have occurred, even with a great athlete. I saw him play in person, and George, he runs like a deer. I mean, unbelievable athlete. I don't understand how he doesn't defend better when there is that two-man game and the switch. But then you've got a guard against a big. He doesn't want to step out. And Coach, Cal's not going to have him step out 15 foot plus, because it reduces their chance to get a strong rebound outside of Toppin. So you kind of want to plant them in the paint. And these opposing teams have seen, well, you know what, if we run a pick and roll on Tshiebwe wherever he is, we're going to get that 15 to 19 foot jump shot if we don't get a three. And then that's going to give the offense a better shot of getting the offensive rebound as well. So it has really hurt them. And Arkansas looked incredible the other night. I was blown away of how focused this young team played, and it was one of my biggest concerns with Arkansas because of their youth that they have and inexperience on the road to go into Rupp and dominate like they did. George, you never felt Kentucky was going to come back and win that game. I did.
No, I didn't either.
It's going to be a 20-plus game.
Yeah. So is there an alternative defensively? Look, he's the best rebounder we've ever seen this side of Bill Russell. But teams now have the book, and they're sitting there going, look, we're going to expose him. So Cal, who I've never thought was, James Naismith, X's and O's, what does he do to counter this?
Well, there's a few options. We call it shading, but your offside defender on the wing can shade more toward Shebway and see the screen being attempted to be able to hedge, which means he's leaning towards that mainly guard that is coming off the screen of the big guy. So you're pretty much, you got to give up something. You can't guard everything. So if you do hedge and shade towards that guard on the drive, then you're giving up that perimeter three-point shot. So you've got to weigh, as a coaching staff, do we give up the 17-foot shot off of a pick and roll or even a drive? Or do we shade towards that point guard or guard and give up a three-point shot to someone that's hot? Because if I'm the offensive coach, I'm putting my hot three-point shooter on that receiving end because he's going to have an open shot. So you just got to weigh it, and you've got to play it and just see what the outcome is going to be. And if it's not favorable, you make adjustments. It's just you don't hear announcers really talking about that. But if you watch closely, you should see these teams make adjustments when things aren't going right for them. And great coaches make those adjustments. Good coaches just rely on the talent out there. But you've got to have the flexibility to make those changes. And George, you've got to go through that stuff in practice. You can't just do that on the fly. So during the scouting report, you should be working on these techniques, and you have to, or they found a weak spot within Kentucky's defensive system.
Okay, let's take Kentucky a little farther. We're now far enough into the year where I think it's fair to say, okay, they're not winning a national title. There's way too much inconsistency. In fact, they're not anywhere near that level at this point. Are they at a level where they could realistically get to the Sweet 16?
I think with the talent level that Kentucky has, I think they can reach the Sweet 16. I don't see them being a Final Four team, but I do think that they could see some improvement in some of these areas we just talked about, George, and just the maturation process throughout the next couple of weeks. I still go back to my thought of Jacob Toppin being the difference maker and having one or two of their guards get hot. You don't have to have everyone shoot well. It's kind of like Tennessee's problem. You just got to have one. If you have Frederick or Reeves, Wallace, Wallace is a lottery pick. And you're sitting there going, how are these guys not faring better as a team? And that's my concern with Kentucky, George, is I just don't see the chemistry there. I think people are not in tune. It's like they may even have their own agenda. You see that against Arkansas, how Arkansas just beat them down. And they've got to turn that around. They have the talent to turn it around. It's just, do they have the will to turn it around? I think that'll be the difference. And one other thing, George, about this Kentucky team, if you know Coach Cal's teams, very reliant on a three-point shot during his career at Kentucky. And I don't have the numbers to back this in front of me. It's just from watching. They probably shot the fewest three-point shots this season since he's been there. It'd be interesting if somebody looked that up. But they don't rely on the three-point shot. And is that a good thing? I mean, maybe they're like, we don't have anybody that can consistently shoot it other than Frederick, but he's really streaky. And they have Sheboy inside. Why would he not touch the ball every time? And that's going to take away from your three-point shooting as well. But it's just a different makeup this season, George, with this talented team that was preseason ranked, very high.
So let me try this, and then we'll go to the break. Let's say it craters and it goes the other way, and Kentucky ends up in the NIT. A month ago, whenever it was, Calipari bought himself some really good time when he was able to go to Knoxville and win, and it shut a lot of stuff up. But now at home, they've gotten trashed by Arkansas, got beat pretty good by Kansas. And I guess I'm wondering, are we about to enter back into this Calipari twilight zone where the rumors of Texas or whoever start to happen again? What do you think?
I think it's trending that direction, George. What blew me away was during this Arkansas game, if you watched it, your followers watched it, they showed the Kentucky bench at the end. They're losing by 15. 3 of the guys are just laughing their butt off. And I'm thinking any coach in America that saw that is like, you cannot display laughter when your teammates are being drilled on the floor. And that really got to me. And that right there, to me, opened up a can of worms in my mind, because I don't care what the joke was. You don't joke when you're on the floor. Yeah, you can have fun, but you're not going to have fun when you're losing. You have fun when you're winning. It's a big margin, game may be over, and you got your walk-ons in, and you hope a guy shoots to get his first point ever. But you don't make jokes or cut up when you're on the bench. That's one of my biggest issues that I noticed this last week. But as far as Calipari, I think, it's good fodder for the media. I mean, he's going to say all the right things and sell the NBA guys and all that. But I still think they're a team to be reckoned with. But what's interesting, and we haven't got into this yet, I know we will in the near future, you're going to hear a lot about this moving forward, George, is looking at quad one wins, looking at the net, which is the NCAA evaluation tool. It's this new metric they've gone to. You're going to see this more ad nauseum. And the last I looked, Kentucky had 1 quad one win.
Yeah.
So that is not good. And just to kind of give you a comparison, I believe there's 15 teams or 13 teams that have at least 6 wins. So when you're looking at a Kentucky with 1, they're poking the bubble.
Yeah. After the break, Billy Derrick will step in, talk a little college basketball, maybe around the country with you as well. And then we'll get Mark's SEC 1 through 14. So stick around. There is plenty more coming. Area colleges and universities have a designated Preds game this season, and Austin Peay State University Govs fans, you're on the clock for Monday night, February the 13th. Students, alumni, and fans are invited to celebrate. College Night Series ticket packages include a Predator game ticket and a limited edition co-branded hat. Tickets can be purchased at NashvillePredators.com/college nights. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com.
Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look.
Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East. And their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. Well, as all of you know, Mark Griffin is terrific talking SEC, talking college basketball in general. Former University of Tennessee star with the professorial glasses. Makes you look smart.
I need it.
You don't have glasses.
I do not, George. I don't have any glasses.
Would
Mark's,
you like some?
I feel like I need some right now with both you guys having glasses on. But Mark, I want to go back to, when you were talking about Liam Robbins and obviously you were, what are you, 6'7", 6'6", 6'7"?
No, don't cheat him.
6'8", somewhere around there. So 6'9". Oh, wow.
Don't cheat him.
I'm not trying to cheat him, but you are sort of similar size. Liam Robbins wasn't necessary. He's not necessarily a shooter, lights out shooter, maybe like a Luke Cornett was at Vanderbilt. But how much has that position changed? Because it does feel like Liam Robbins, if he's able to shoot, that's a guy that in the NBA, they got to look at him and say, man, if like George was talking about the footwork, if he can improve a little bit of footwork, this guy could be an NBA prospect. What do you think about that and sort of his future down the road professionally?
Oh, I think after watching that Tennessee game that any NBA scout that was in attendance is taking notes, and the ones that weren't there, there's game tape being sent. I think he's put himself out there even more because of the minutes that he's playing and having to battle. The biggest issue is if he's so injury prone, that's going to be a red flag. But if he's able to play through it and rehabilitate in a short manner like he has, that's going to be on the good side for him. Feet work, you just get better with that over the years. He's a young guy, and that's some of the things that you can control as a student athlete, or your feet work. You can improve, a little bit at a time over a time period and throughout the years. But to be able to step out and shoot the three is a major plus for him, because he looks so confident doing it. And of course, you have to look at how many opportunities he's taken. And I don't even know what his 3-point shooting percentage is. I didn't need to after the other night how he fared. But I know if I'm Vanderbilt, especially if I'm an opponent playing Vanderbilt, you've got to come out and guard him, because he's going to put up a shot. And even against UT, I was right there on the side where he did knock down a couple. They had a guy in his face. So it's not like he was just wide open.
Right.
He's like, he had a shot, take the shot. And that's what I love about watching and evaluating players such as Liam, is he wasn't thinking. He was reacting or just playing. And a lot of guys you'll see, especially big guys, what the game has changed, but they'll receive the ball and it's like, okay, pass first, pass first, pass first. You can see their eyes going back and forth, and you're told not to hold the ball more than a second in some programs. But you see these guys, they see the opportunity, up it goes. And that's what you saw the other night. And I think he's just going to get better. And that guy's going to make money somewhere. I don't know what NBA roster, if he has a shot. He'll have a shot because he'll get invited to some of these postseason camps. But if he just keeps improving and if he has the work ethic, that's just going to help him down the road.
Mark, we've got your SEC power rankings right here as you released them. I guess it was yesterday. Sent them over to George, and of course, you can let me know if you change anything, from then to now. But you got Alabama, Tennessee. Those two haven't changed. Those haven't changed for a while. I want to ask you about Arkansas. Arkansas has sort of quickly crept up there to that 3 spot here in the last week or so. You saw the Kentucky game. They've started to really, I think, find their groove a little bit. They had some games where they looked like, they looked awful, certain games, especially early on in the SEC schedule. So what have you seen from Arkansas this past week or so? How have they been able to climb their way back up to the top?
2 factors. One is Jordan Walsh, the freshman, is a extremely rare, great defender as a freshman. He's one that I've seen that's really progressed, plays his role well. McDonald's All-American. They had him on a lot of NBA boards, kind of slid a little bit. Don't know why, but, because he's just going to keep improving. And the way I go back to the games that I've watched, he's just gotten better. But one of the biggest factors is I love Anthony Black, the big-haired kid that plays guard, plays loose. I mean, he's a guy that, is the first pick out on the playground because he's just in control, wants the ball in his hands. Extremely great passer. But the factor that propelled them for me up 3 spots is the play of Davis. Their left-handed, really cat-quick guard that one of the announcers the other night compared to Patrick Beverly. I thought that was a great comparison. And now he's getting NBA looks. So when you look at this roster, it's probably one of the most decorated NBA caliber players in the country, not just, especially in the SEC. They've got more NBA caliber. Now, I'm not saying they're going to all stick to a team, but they have that individual talent that has been playing well together as opposed to what we talked about before, Kentucky. So with that really inspired me to move them up because they haven't fared well on the road during this year. But with this win against Kentucky, I think is really going to motivate this team, and Coach Musselman's going to really guide the ship to bigger things to come. And it's exciting time for the program because they're really hard to beat at home. I was just really surprised how well they played at Rupp.
Yeah, and talk about a tough place to play there at Rupp. Let me ask you about Texas A&M. I mean, we've seen them defensively and what they've been able to do. Do they have enough offense, Mark, down the stretch here to – now you've got them, it looks like, as an NCAA tournament team. I think Lenardi does right now as well. How far can their offense take them? Because their defense, similar to Tennessee, when they're shooting well, feels like they can beat anybody, but when they're not, they can lose to anybody. So with A&M, how far can that offense take them?
That's the biggest issue for this A&M team. They've got what I would call the strongest inside presence with these beefy big guys in Marble, the transfer from Michigan State, and Henry Coleman, who transferred from Duke a couple of years ago. They're space eaters. And one thing about A&M, and you mentioned this, is they're going to defend. But can they have consistent offensive play with Baldwin? Great player. You look to him, but you've seen other games. I can't think of the one gentleman name that just blew it out against, I want to say it was Auburn. And, they just beat Auburn recently. But people are going to look at A&M and wonder, like you said, okay, they're a really good defensive team, but can we get them on a night when they're not shooting the ball well? And I'm a little unknowing of all the teams. They're one of them that I'm like, how are they going to play on the road? Because it's very difficult to shoot a high percentage on the road versus your cozy backyard. And that's a team I'm really going to watch as far as how they play on the road. But the way they defend, the way they fight, the coach hugs on them when they come off the court, which I've not seen that happen in this program in years. They just seem to really play for each other, and that's one of the factors that I have to take into place is, are you playing for your teammate or just yourself?
Let's keep going down the line here. Mark, Missouri right there at number 5. What Coach Gates has done this year has been phenomenal. I mean, he's come in and, he's got some talent, but it feels like his coaching edge has played a big role in sort of changing that culture quickly. They've got Tennessee and Knoxville. Obviously, Tennessee is going to be hungry for a win on Saturday, but Missouri, what do you like most about that team? Obviously, they like to get out and run, but how has Coach Gates done this year, and how much of a shot do you give them in Knoxville this weekend?
Well, one thing Coach Gates has done is given them freedom to fail. And what I mean by that is they're such an explosive offensive team. They run and gun. They get off shots. I mentioned earlier about playing for your teammates. Missouri is number 1 in 3 categories in the SEC, including assist. Now, if you are leading the conference in assist, you're distributing the ball, which means you're not a selfish player. And for them to be number 1, it's coming from more than just one guy. So that's one thing that stood out. They're getting good shots. They're first in the SEC in field goal percentage. And then they're playing really well as far as number 1 in the SEC in steals. So that tells me they're defending, even though they're giving up 74 points a game, which is 315th in the country. So it's the defense is the unknown. It's kind of what I would say their competitive disadvantage. Even though they're stealing the ball, it doesn't mean they're executing on the other end because they're giving up so many points. And I think, and I hate to call it a trap game, but for Tennessee, this game probably couldn't come at a better time because you're playing against a team that's not known as a great defensive team. And with Tennessee's offensive struggles, you kind of welcome in a team like Missouri, looking at the stats anyway, to say, hey, we can take advantage of this. And if we could just take care of the ball better than our predecessors, we're probably going to have a good chance. But then you've got to focus also on who I would think is the player of the year is Kobe Brown out of Huntsville, Alabama, and Lee High School. I know his family very well. I coached his brother, who's a member of Missouri, and it's a great family and a great story about how this kid stayed with the program, and every year his stats went up just a little bit per year and has had a breakout season. Well, with Kobe Brown, just some notes here. I mean, he's second in the SEC in field goals, and he's second in three-point shooting, and he's 6'8". I think he's 250. And in points, he's 4th in the SEC. So he plays a big part. Now, one thing he's prone to is to get in foul trouble. And that's another thing. Will Tennessee bang him and get him into foul trouble because it considerably drops off. And they're not a good rebounding team as well overall. They're 12th in the SEC. So there's opportunity there as well. But really pleased with Coach Gates. I think it's one of the great stories in the SEC for someone that's relatively unknown as a head coach at Cleveland State. Spent a lot of time at Florida State under Leonard Hamilton. And is going to be Coach of the Year candidate for sure based on his play. And what's even more interesting, guys, is the fans, which I've never seen their fans fill up the gym other than Kentucky. They're showing up
every game.
You know why? It's an exciting style, and fans like to see players play for each other and hard.
We talked about Kentucky. Mark, let's go to Auburn here. They're sitting at number 7 in your power rankings. A good net ranking right now, 32. I think Lenardi likes them a lot as well, and what they've been able to do. Huge opportunity for them. They get Alabama at home, 1 o'clock tomorrow. The place is going to be rocking. So for Auburn, how do they match up with Alabama? Obviously, Alabama has looked like the best team in the country their last 2 or 3 games out. So how do you think Auburn matches up with them, and what could this win if they're able to beat Alabama? I know that's a big if, but say they beat Alabama, what does that do for them?
If this game's at Auburn, and you can check, or George can check, I believe it is.
It is at Auburn, yep.
I'm actually picking an upset special.
Boom.
And I'm not a betting man, but just a friendly wager. And I'll tell you why. With Johanny Broome creates a huge mismatch against this Alabama team and their big guy, Bediako. If Auburn goes to him consistently, then they have a chance to be in this game. Now, what was interesting against Tennessee, I was at that game, and Broome was killing UT the first 5 minutes. And then Auburn just went away from them. I mean, they stopped going into their horse. So I was just blown away. I'm like, why aren't you getting the ball to Broome? He's killing UT. So if they're and look, Coach Pearl, Coach, miles around me. I mean, but just as an astute fan, you got to go with what's working, and their system didn't stay with what was working best. They went to the 3-point shot, and what concerns me about Auburn against Alabama, Auburn's 3-point % shooting, which, guys, as you know, has pretty much propelled them in the Final Four years ago. I think they're 352 out of 363, or they're around 350 in the country. I think they're shooting 28%. That's horrible. You got SEC players shooting 28%. And then you've got their 2 best players, believe it or not, they're not recruits that they got out of high school. They're transfers from the OVC. So let's give the OVC some credit here with Broome and then the gentleman, Wendell Green out of Eastern Kentucky. And it's going to be at Auburn. That place is going to be I think it's at Auburn, George. They're going to be rocking.
Oh, you know it.
I think they're going to do their best to take the ball out of hands to your Cane Ridge product. I think Miller. Yeah, with Miller, I think that's got to be a focus because he really inspires this team to greatness. Another concern for Auburn is, Alabama's got a lot of talent, and they've got guards that could shoot. And Mark Sears, the transfer from Ohio, has been tremendous. And Quinterly's, came off of injury. That's a transfer from Villanova a few years ago. Always loved his game. Very focused, great passer, well-coached team. I mean, people take for granted, teams winning. You're like, hey, they're great. But you got to look at it and say, what's great about them? Well, when you look at this Alabama team, they're very disciplined, and they pass the ball tremendously well. Their angles to throw the ball from the wings to the inside block are really great angles, because if you have a bad angle, then you've got a turnover. So to be able to take care of the ball in that sense, know your strengths and weaknesses as a team, I think Alabama's really fit that role, but they are beatable. I mean, people say they're a Final Four team. They are, but let's look around the country. There's no dominant team. I mean, Purdue is, everyone's jumping on their bandwagon. But what if Edey gets in foul trouble? I know I'm digressing here, but nonetheless, the bottom line is you got to come playing every night, guys, every night.
Yeah. Mark, we got to run. Alabama, by the way, a 2.5-point favorite. Lines have just come out in that game. I will pass on more of them. Thank you so much, as always. Great Friday visit.
Yeah, good to see y'all.
Thanks,
Stat of the day, and then the very latest SEC football news. And for the first time in a while, it's big. Stay tuned.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? How?
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports, and then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back in. It's time for Stat of the Day. We got the 3 o'clock hour upon us. Let's get to Stat of the Day. It's brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards out in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 931-492-4304. Again, that's 931-492-4304. You can find them tomorrow. They're open 10 a.m. to 5, so go take a visit and enjoy your weekend. George, we will enjoy our weekend, but let's take a look first at Stat of the Day. Geno Smith, George, obviously, we talked about him at the top of the show. He won Comeback Player of the Year. He's the first Seahawks quarterback to ever receive an MVP vote since who and when? So he did receive an MVP vote.
Okay, the obvious would be easy to say, Russell Wilson. But the fact that you've put this question up here tells me that it might be Matt Hasselbeck.
You think?
I don't know. I don't know why you would have asked the question.
You'll be figuring out here.
If it weren't. Let me think here for a minute. So Jim Zorn going way back. Dan McGuire going way back.
Back when they had the blue, the different shade of blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Matt Hasselbeck.
Hasselbeck?
Yeah.
Okay. George, the correct answer is he is the first and only one.
Wow.
I found this right before the show started.
I'm sure you did.
I just thought I'd trick you out a little bit there.
Okay.
But that's still crazy.
That's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you early SEC lines for tomorrow, and these have just come out, so bear with me.
Let's hear them.
Kentucky only 5.5 at Georgia.
Interesting.
Yeah, how about that? Ole Miss at home 10 over pitiful South Carolina. Good Lord.
That's
are they bad
fest.
Or what? Alabama only 2.5 at Auburn.
That's telling you something too.
Boy,
I
that's
like
telling you they don't trust Bama.
Yeah, I like Mark's pick there. Rivalry game. Auburn's at home. I don't know if I would take Bama there.
Vandy, Florida.
What's that one?
Well, you tell me.
I'm going to say 5.5.
8.
8. Florida's 8. Wow.
That surprised me too.
Vandy gets no respect. Not saying they necessarily should, because they've got to prove some more things, but the fact that's 8, that surprised me a little bit.
Missouri at Tennessee.
I think Tennessee is a 10-point favorite.
13.5.
Wow.
Yeah. Mississippi State at Arkansas.
Mississippi State at Arkansas. Arkansas 7.
Bingo.
Boom.
Boom. Let's see here.
A&M and LSU. You got that one?
Yes, I do.
I'm gonna
at
say
LSU.
I'm gonna say A&M 14 or 15.
5.
5?
That's all.
LSU's awful.
Yeah, I know.
That's surprising.
What do they know that we don't?
They must know
Because
something.
most of the time they do know something.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get now to SEC football, because the big news that happened overnight is that it sure looks like Texas and Oklahoma now are going to join the SEC in 2024. And when we say in 2024, I think I'm right. That means that it all starts with football season that year. And Billy, the way I think I have read this is that Fox and ESPN were having to try to figure out money to distribute.
Right.
Because Fox was going to lose out on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like ESPN has tossed over some games that initially would not have been there. So that games that were going to be on ESPN have now been shifted over to Fox to make up the difference.
Yeah, the 8 legacy, in quote, Big 12 teams, George, they agreed to share a portion of their media rights distributions from the Big 12's existing deals with Fox and ESPN to make the 4-team expansion. Each program decided to forego the $16 million total. So that's what Dennis Dodd reported. And then in another separate deal, Texas and OU agreed to pay cash to Fox in exchange for their games, leaving the network a year early. So there was sort of a give and take here on both sides. But George, you can understand why it took a little bit longer than some fans might have expected, because there's a lot of money involved here. And, I think they did the best job of the Big 12 saying, hey, we want to keep some of this money, but you will, you're not going to lose much, or if any at all.
Supposedly the guy that really got these groups back on track was the new Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormark. It seems that this guy early has made a real positive contribution to the Big 12. Seems like he's kind of a star on the rise a little bit that they have been able to find. By the way, look at those stadiums. Goodness.
Those are coming to the SEC.
Man. So to me, here's some things that need to get brought up. Okay. SEC's going to 9 as far as number of games they play.
Yeah.
That's a big problem for the Vandies of the world to add another conference game, because what it means is you go down to 3 of the so-called cupcakes that you need, for instance, if you're a Vandy, to ever get to 6 wins. You remember a year ago, by winning the 2 conference games, they had a chance to go to a bowl if they'd beaten Tennessee. Now, they were nowhere close, but that's what it was.
Yeah, and George, I almost feel bad for a Missouri, a Vanderbilt. Heck, George, even an Arkansas team that seems to be going downhill a little bit right now under Sam Pittman. And you've got, one of your old Big 8 rivals coming in now with Oklahoma and Texas also right there around your geographic location. It's going to start getting a lot more competitive. Not that it isn't already, but that area, I think that's what Sankey and the SEC wanted. Texas and OU, Arkansas, Missouri, LSU, recruiting, I don't know that it's going to be as easy anymore. Now, not only do you have NIL, but in that West portion, you cut sort of the Southeastern Conference in the middle, through the middle. That West portion of it is getting a lot more competitive.
It would not surprise me if the SEC ditched the division stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go to 4 divisions, maybe not go to any, and then have a piece of paper this big to fit the standings.
Yeah.
It'd be insane.
It's like the old Big East, the Big East basketball conference, where they got about 16 teams.
But here's where Billy, here's where kind of the rubber meets the road, is who become your permanent opponents.
Right.
They're all going to beg to get Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee will, I would assume, get that advantage that one of their permanents will be Vandy.
Their in-state rival.
Now, for instance, on Vandy's front, who else do we think will be permanent?
For Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Kentucky, I would think, would be permanent. Georgia, a team that Vandy has played every year since, I think for the past 3 or 4 years, has been Ole Miss. And, I'm not saying that's a rivalry, but those games have been fun, typically, other than last year. They've been competitive, fairly competitive. And so I think of Ole Miss for Vanderbilt as maybe a trendy option there. Other than that, maybe they give Missouri, maybe they go Missouri. But if your 3 permanents are Tennessee, Kentucky, and Missouri, there might be some other SEC teams saying, hey, I want Kentucky and Missouri in my permanent, but maybe they do that for Vandy. But I don't know. I think Ole Miss could be an option there, George.
I think you're going to have real battle lines drawn about this issue. Because if you remember, Watson brought it up on the show a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee should want Alabama just for the natural rivalry.
Right.
Okay. Kentucky, Vandy. What about Florida? You gonna keep Florida out of Tennessee?
I don't think either fan base wants that.
Oh, I don't either.
Tennessee is a team, George, that they're going to lose at least one permanent they don't want to lose.
Yeah.
They're going to keep Alabama. They'll keep Georgia. And then at that point, do they keep Florida? Do they keep Kentucky? There's so many little rivalries in there. Maybe Georgia, is that a permanent that's taken away?
Well, let me ask this. It would seem to me over the last 10-year period, Florida gets the nod over Georgia to be in Tennessee's permanent.
Yes. And I wouldn't even say Tennessee and Georgia is much of a rivalry. They're in the same division, so I guess you could say that, but there's a whole lot more tradition and hatred with Tennessee and Florida, and even Tennessee and Kentucky.
Old hatred.
Yeah. And Tennessee and Alabama. So those are the teams I think of, Georgia. I don't think of Georgia for Tennessee. It'll be interesting.
We did this year.
We sure did. It'll be interesting though, George, just to see where some of the politics comes from, and we might get a lot of this at SEC Media Days. It'll be here in Nashville.
Oh, absolutely.
Just all these coaches are going to be hammered about this. Who do you want for your 3 permanents? Who do you want?
This is going to be
the hottest topic.
It's going to be the hot topic. Now, are they at a point where they can announce it then? I don't know.
I think if you're Greg Sankey, you don't announce it before SEC Media Days.
No. That's where you would do it, you would think.
Right.
If they're ready to.
Maybe you do it, Tuesday or Wednesday, right in the middle of SEC Media Days. That gives you all that to talk about. It gives Sankey the opportunity, to bring that up. It gives coaches to say, that are left at least, say, here's your 3 permanents. So I think, that's the thing about it, George. It's always in season. We're never not talking college football, at least SEC football. So that's sort of it. It's almost like we're talking NFL now with it. Do we want a 17th game? Well, who are the 3 permanents? You know, I mean, there's a lot of NFL type feel now with college football, SEC football in particular.
Here's the other thing. Are there any coaches who will go on the record in these coming months and say, I'm not voting for 12. I mean, I'm not voting for 9 conference games. You remember Saban came out very strongly for it, but given some of his rosters, that's a lot easier to do.
Yeah. I think what you'll get, George, is you'll get the Kirby Smarts and probably a Josh Heupels and you know, those higher echelon coaches. They will want the 9 conference games because they know they can beat them. You know, but you get the Missouri, Vandy, maybe in Arkansas, you know, the struggling teams, A&M. They want to face as few SEC teams as they can. You know, I mean,
well, here's one other thought on this. The days of being able to put together these 9-3 records, you know, the first tier might be Alabama and Georgia with 0 losses or 1 loss. All of a sudden, the second tier, 7-5 may look a whole lot better than it used to.
George, that's what you start to think about. I mean, it reminds me of that COVID year where there was 10 SEC games, and you know, you start thinking to yourself, if Vandy could win 3, you know, that'd be a success. For Tennessee, if they could win, you know, 5 or 6, that's a great year. That's what it's starting to get to. That sort of territory of you got 9 SEC teams you got to play. Good luck.
True.
I mean,
you're going to need it.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think it times up well, George, with the 12-team playoff, NIL, portal. It's insane how much it's changed in the past couple of years, really.
We've been really fortunate over the last week and a half through the folks at X3 Training. We've been able to get several college football players on and some really good talkers. After the break, Matthew Jackson from Eastern Kentucky University will join us, and we'll ask the question, if you're from, you know, that level of school, do you have a harder time getting the scouts' attention, and do you have to impress more just to be on an even playing field? Stay tuned.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
We're back and excited in just a moment to say hello to Eastern Kentucky University linebacker Matthew Jackson. He is one of a series of college athletes who are training locally at X3 as they get ready for the combine. So let's bring Matthew to our microphones. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Same here. Thank you. So I'm curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and time, when you're at Eastern Kentucky and you're trying to get the same attention that a Michigan linebacker or an Ohio State or whoever that are the bigger names, do you start at a disadvantage, or is that a myth these days?
Well, due to being at a Power 5 level, when you say like Ohio State and the Michigans and the Alabamas and stuff, you kind of do start at a little disadvantage being at a smaller FCS D1 school. But it is all how you perceive it. So the perception of just going out there and playing football is, to the scouts, they find talent no matter what school you at. So.
Yeah, well, so how do you bridge the gap to guarantee that they do notice you?
Just the talent on the field, talent off the field, and then also, I feel like football and the connection to the league is all about who you know. So having that connection, being at a local training facility like X3, with the opportunities that they have with the people that they know, like Blake and Hubert, and just all the good connections. It puts a little pedestal on top of my name. So,
yeah, tell us a little bit about what they have you working most on, and what are the important numbers that you're trying to get to before you go to Indy.
So what I'm mostly working on is my weight. I'm kind of in that mid-range DB size / nickel size right now. So just being that true defined Sam linebacker role and getting to a good, consistent, healthy weight as far as more of the NFL body type. That's my emphasis. And then just critiquing stuff that I've came out of college with. So my 40, my position drills, and polishing it up.
Yeah. What for a linebacker, what's the number you want to get to in the 40?
Oh, I've previously hit 4.4. So as a linebacker, that is pretty fast, but just over exceeding my expectations. So getting that down to a 4.3 and just showing the showcase as, okay, he's at a small school, but he can still run fast as if he was playing at FBS level. So,
Billy, did you get that? He's fast.
Yeah, that's pretty fast for a linebacker there. Matt, I appreciate you taking the time with us. As a linebacker at Eastern Kentucky, I went to high school with one of the guys on the team, Jalen Herod, who is, obviously I think he's a linebacker with you as well.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting there. But looking at your guys' season, as we take a look kind of past the season, solid year, going 7-5 in a tough conference, lost a tough one to Gardner-Webb there at the end. What did you take from this season, and not just from you, but as a program, and kind of describing what Coach Wells has up there at Eastern Kentucky?
Well, that starting with Coach Wells, he had that major heart attack and that major episode in the beginning of the season. So this was a true testament to him, and he's doing well now. So just having that season, that consistency, we wanted to just play for that. And then it was such a bridge because we were such a senior-led team that now the team that's coming after us knows the expectations and has to exceed those expectations. And we got the program moving back into the right direction, and with our play and how we performed last year, with winning an ASUN championship and going to the playoffs since 2014.
I want to talk more about X3 with you, and we had, we've had several guys on our show talking about X3.
Eli Huggins most recently. We lose Matthew.
Yeah, we lost Matt. I don't know.
Oh, I'm back.
Here we go.
It looked like he went into Aaron Rodgers' dark room.
But Matt, give us a little bit more specifics on some of the nutritional things they have you guys doing besides the training. Like what sort of encapsulates the entire X3 performance for you and kind of the experience that you've been through?
Well, since day one, it's been a little overwhelming with the amount of food that we've been getting, plus the nutrition. So we started out like 3 big pancakes, and me being a breakfast guy, I was like, whoa, eating this, and then knowing that I got to do a pre-drive and pre-workout, it just felt well. So we have the nutrition with Jesse. He keeps us well nutritioned with all the meals, plus the shakes, and plus the pre-workout and post-workout, and then the post dinners and stuff like that. It's all good grains, all good carbs, and it keeps us lean and mean.
Keeps you right. Matt, I got one more here for you about just, the opportunity at hand for you and what this means to you and sort of some of the emotions. I mean, you get to X3, you said you were overwhelmed a little bit by a lot of the food. I'm sure a lot of the training, you've learned a lot from it. So what kind of feelings have you been going through leading up to this NFL draft process? Because, who knows, you could be on an NFL roster next year.
It's been kind of like anxious and exciting, but being with the all the people that I'm with, as far as Coop right here, and then all of the other athletes that are also training, it's been a blessing, and I can build a relationship with them, and we have built a relationship, and it's just been strong, and we all just waiting on that day for our name to get called and our time for the pro day. So,
Matthew, let me toss one more at you. On the college level, you're normally going to play 12, maybe 13 games. On the pro level, you're going to go 17 regular, 3 preseason, who knows what in the playoffs. And they always say that the rookies hit a wall. And it's very understandable because you've never gone through quite that grind.
Yes.
What do you try to do in training to minimize that wall?
So you have to find what's your weakness with building that wall. So it could be somebody's endurance, it could be somebody's mental, it could be somebody's just problems that they have during the season. So just getting that mental health and getting that release and understanding what you need to work on throughout the season is probably going to be the biggest thing. With me, I could think that it could be a lot of people's endurance, and since it's such a long season, them being actually healthy enough, because you see a lot of nicks and injuries be coming out of nowhere, hamstrings, knock on wood, people tearing their ACLs and stuff like that, and just small ankle injuries will set you back weeks and stuff like that. So just trying to be a whole complete athlete with the mental, the physical, and the spiritual.
Hey, appreciate you doing this. You're the latest in a series of guys we've had on from X3. We've enjoyed all of you. Good talkers, good success when you get to Indy, Combine, the draft, all that stuff. Thank you for the visit.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Matthew Jackson, he can fly.
He's got a little bit of speed to him.
Man, you think? 4.4 trying to get down to 4.3. Give me a thumbs up there, Matthew. Yeah. Baby. That's pretty good stuff. 4.4.
That's the speed you want, George, as an NFL linebacker.
Right, it is.
I mean, there's not too many linebackers with that type of speed.
You got to cover Saquon Barkley coming out.
Might be put to good use there.
You want to do that, don't you? He just gave me another thumbs up. I love it. Hey, be careful what you wish for. Okay, let's get to the Super Bowl. Well, actually, you know what? You've got to do all the pre.
I do, George.
Yeah,
It's
the gloating.
It's time for not bet of the day, bet of the weekend. We usually say bets of the weekend, but we got one football game to bet on. I say George. Plaster's bet of the day is brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers that you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. Again, that's 615-242-9000, or log on to bartdurham.com. George, how'd you do last night?
I'll tell you how I did last night.
I'm interested to
I
know
won.
because there's no graphic available, but you got the win.
Darn tootin' I did.
That was the Oregon over
Ducks.
USC game. Yep,
Yes,
the Oregon Ducks.
it was.
How
Oregon took care of Daddy.
How is Oregon this year? I don't even.
It's hard to tell. There's certain nights where I watch Oregon and I'm like, okay, got it. And then there are other nights, I don't know.
You don't know quite what you're going to get.
No, you really don't. But
you got off the schneid, though.
Well, they got off to a big lead very early. When I tuned it in, it was like 29-11.
Oof.
But let's get on to this.
Let's
Okay.
do.
You always worry when a chunk of the general public is going in one direction.
Yep.
And in this case, they're all going Philly. Now, why do I think that is? Well, number one, Philly trashed a very strong San Francisco, but you also have to remember and take into account the fact that this didn't work out. When Brock Purdy got hurt, suddenly San Francisco, they really had no options.
Right.
So I'm not saying it was a freebie.
It wasn't fair to the 49ers.
Right.
Though. Yeah.
But there is this belief, and I'll admit I share it, that Kansas City has really been very fortunate to be in this position. Cincinnati was the better team midway through the fourth quarter. Any of you who watched that game believed the Bengals were going to win, right?
Yes.
Okay. And through a little bit of help from the officials, shall we say?
A little bit.
Or a bunch of help from the officials, the Chiefs won the game. Butker hit the field goal at the buzzer, and they won, and they didn't feel like the better team.
No, and George, part of me is thinking to myself, man, nobody is taking the Chiefs in this game.
Doesn't look like it.
And as a bettor, you almost want to avoid looking back at this and telling yourself, man, I'm so stupid. Why did I not take Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl? Why did I bet against him? That part of me wants to believe that. I just think as a team, this isn't just Mahomes versus Hurts. This is more of, Watson said it yesterday, the Eagles dominate the line of scrimmage. They have all season long. They have dominated the line of scrimmage in the playoffs. I think that's what wins the game. I think it's going to be close, George. I agree with you. I think you think it's going to be close as well and competitive, high scoring. But I don't think Philly's
going to win.
Yeah, but Philly's going to win. I don't think it's as simple as saying, how could you bet against Patrick Mahomes? I don't. I mean, if this was Cincinnati, maybe I would. Obviously, they just played Cincinnati, but like that's why that in an AFC title, that's what I would say, but not in this Super Bowl.
So when we've done tail of the tape this year, we have listed a category that is intangibles.
Yes.
Here's where I'm going with the intangibles. I think Kansas City has been forced to be more of a nickel and dime offense. They are now going 10 yards at a time because they don't have as much as they used to with Tyreek Hill to stretch the field and get big chunks, right?
Right.
It's sort of 10 yards at a time, and Travis Kelce with Mahomes has been amazing. But it's 10 yards at a time. Philly, well, they've got the guy that ought to be here, A.J. Brown.
Yep.
And my belief is that A.J. Brown is at least twice in this game going to break 25-yard plus
going to step
biggies.
Up. Yep, because he hasn't yet.
Right. And it's all about some chunk plays. And I think Philly's going to get more of them than KC is.
I agree, George. I think A.J. Brown could be a dark horse MVP in this game.
I kind of do too.
Because say he gets a couple touchdowns, some huge plays that really impact the game. You could give it to Hurts, I guess, in that situation. But if AJ's the one catching them, I mean, this could be his moment, But But I'm interested, George. I think do the Chiefs experience, how much does that help them? Because they've got more recent Super Bowl experience.
Yeah.
The Eagles, they've got that
It's
pocket.
an advantage.
Yeah, they've got a pocket of guys that have been there, but the Chiefs, they've got that advantage. And so how does it play a factor? I'm sure it will, but is it enough for them to win? It just feels like winning this game is not possible for the Chiefs at this point.
Here's what is interesting. For this percentage of people going on Philly, the line has not moved. So it's much more 50-50 than you think. I'm going Philly.
You're going Philly?
I think they win by at least a field goal, maybe more like a touchdown.
I agree. I agree, George. I cannot see KC overcoming the physicality, the aggression on that defense from Philly.
By the way, as we end the show today, with the Super Bowl around the corner, once we get finished with that, baseball is 6 weeks away, basically 45 days from the start of the regular season. But who's counting? And the answer, me.
Man, I'm ready for baseball too, George.
Bring it on.
We're about a week away from college baseball.
Yeah, which is absurd.
Every college season starts about a month earlier now. So
nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're done. Enjoy your Super Bowl. Enjoy the halftime. Enjoy the pregame. Don't watch 6 hours of pregame. What a waste. Come on, get out, enjoy.
I might watch 3.
No, do not. See you Monday.